Hi, and welcome to this episode of Brainy Moms. I'm Dr. Amy Moore, here with my beautiful co-host, Teri Miller. We're coming to you today from a partly sunny but very hot Colorado. We are excited to welcome our guest, Natalie Vecchione. Natalie is a homeschool consultant, FASD parent advocate, co-author of the book Blazing New Homeschool Trails, Educating and Launching Teens with Developmental Disabilities. And she's also the host of the podcast FASD Hope.
Welcome, Natalie. I'm glad that you are here with us. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm excited that you're our guest today because we've got lots of homeschool mom listeners. Before we even launch into anything, just tell us a little bit about yourself, about how you got into what you do, and give us a little history for our listeners.
Sure thing. So my husband and I, we met in school, East Carolina University, go Pirates, and we married pretty young, right out of undergrad school. I, at the time, was battling severe endometriosis, and when my husband and I started dating, I told him that there was a really good chance I wouldn't be able to conceive because of my endometriosis, and he said, "That's okay. I love you because you're you and not because you can carry a child. And if you can't get pregnant, we'll adopt." So my husband and I then, after we married, we moved to Miami, where we both went to graduate school. And we tried getting pregnant for a number of years, and I actually became sicker as we were trying to conceive. So we ended graduate school. We moved up to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1998. In 1999, I had a total abdominal hysterectomy at the age of 28. It was definitely a reinvention for my body because I went from being sick all the time to having a surgical menopause, which is pretty dramatic, but it gave me a quality of life. And I realized I needed that, especially, when we became parents a few years later. So we adopted our son when he was 2.5 weeks old in 2002. And he had medical issues, which we later found out were a result from his having a fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. And we tried, all sorts of different schools. We tried private school, public school, hybrid school. And as he grew older and as he acquired more diagnoses, we realized that homeschooling was really the best option for him. So I stopped my career of being a music therapist and being a recreational therapist and working primarily as a music therapist at the time to homeschool our son. And that was almost 8 years ago. And I didn't realize at the time, but it was actually a fantastic accommodation. We know that homeschooling allows our kids to learn at their own pace, especially if they have a lot of strengths in one area, but maybe need more support in different areas. Mm-hmm. So we started homeschooling our son. And we also at around the same time, a year later, adopted our daughter. And she was our daughter's adoption story is much different than our son. Unfortunately, we don't know anything about our son's birth parents. We know very little about his birth mom, nothing about his birth dad. So we have a closed adoption. We've tried finding out more information and just have not been successful. Our daughter, on the other hand, has a completely different story. Her birth mom was actually our son's babysitter when we lived in Philadelphia, and her birth mom and her birth aunt were my flute students as well. So we adopted our daughter at birth. My husband and I were there at her birth, and she has a very different adoption journey and a very different homeschool journey as a typically developing young child. So in 2017, when our son, just before his 15th birthday, he was hospitalized as a result of having a comorbid mental health diagnosis that was actually a result of his having a fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. And I should backtrack. When he was 2 years old, we were verbally told that he may have been, by a specialist, that he may have been exposed to alcohol, prenatal alcohol exposure. And we've had that confirmation when he was 15 and when he was hospitalized. So we really, at that point, when he was hospitalized, I'll be honest, it really broke me as a mom. It really did, because I just really did not know what to do. You know, and I prayed and I educated myself, and I thought I was an advocate for my son, but I went to advocate boot camp and learned even more, really learned about brain-based parenting, neurobehavioral parenting, neurodiversity, and really changed the trajectory of his homeschooling, to that we focused on his skills especially, but we really let him explore working with his hands and working in areas that we saw, you know, were strengths for him, and letting explore. So he took some welding classes, he took some forging classes, but the class that really stuck with him, and it actually turned into a camp and then turned into the subject of my portion of the book that I co-authored, was he learned carpentry and became a carpentry apprentice. And that really changed our trajectory of homeschooling, because I think so many homeschoolers, and myself included, because I did do this when I started homeschooling, we either are married to curriculums, or we either are married to a strategy, or we're married to, okay, well, this is our group, this is our homeschool co-op, this is the way we do things. And having a son with an FASD, with a fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, I learned the hard way, unfortunately, but I learned that you really can't be married to anything except for your spouse when you're homeschooling, because our children's brains and our adolescents' brains, they develop, they change, they grow, and we need to allow for that, especially if we take a strengths-based approach to homeschooling, which is one of the many topics our book discusses. So fast forward to today, our son graduated from homeschool last year. He continues his apprenticeship, even though he's done with homeschooling, and he continues his work as a carpentry apprentice. He's taking some more advanced courses. He's still with his second teacher, who he has been for over 2 years. And although all of his friends from homeschooling or that he do through regular school have launched, and they're all either, living on a dorm or in the military or working, he is still at home. We are in the process of taking one of our detached workshops. We live on a small property, about 4 acres in farm country. And we're taking one of our workshops and converting it into a tiny house for him, so that he can have interdependence. And that's another topic we really talk about in our homeschool journey, so that he can have his own space and have, his own lights and things and whatnot, but yet still have that safety net of us being on the property, if he needs anything. Because we know with kids that have, and adolescents and young adults that have brain-based diagnoses, such as FASD, there is definitely a gap between their chronological age and their developmental age. And as parents, it's really important for us to acknowledge that and be aware of that as they grow, because him seeing all of his friends launch, that actually triggered some grief in him, and actually in my husband and I, because it was something we weren't expecting, honestly. Sometimes you just think about getting through the day, and when that happened, we're like, oh yeah, that is something we all need to grieve. So again, he's doing well, and we're kind of gearing up for that next step. Will he ever live on his own? Perhaps with good supports in place, or perhaps if we find some place that we feel he could thrive in. But for now, this is our plan, and during our homeschooling, especially the last years, we really felt that having that connection with our son so that he felt like we were his safe place and that he could come to us when he was having challenges, we felt that was really important. And I think that that's another, again, I keep saying one of the things we wanted to communicate in our book, but that was one of the many things we wanted to communicate. You know, our young adults, our teens, our kids, our young adults that have brain-based diagnoses, such as FASD, autism spectrum, ADHD, you know, fill in the blank, you know, dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, any type of brain-based diagnosis, we need to support where there are needs such as adaptive functioning, executive functioning, areas like that, but then really highlight and shine a light on their strengths. And that can be in the area of skills, it can be in the area of arts, it can be in the area of, you know, being very sociable, personable. There are many areas where our kids that have neurodiversity shine. And that's one of the many reasons I love homeschooling. Our daughter is typically developing. She just turned 6. She does have childhood absence epilepsy, which runs in her birth father's family. So even though she is typically developing, she does have a neurological diagnosis, and homeschooling for her looks differently, but a lot of the same themes and kind of same, I guess, strategies apply for her too. You know, we support her strengths. If she has, you know, an absent seizure, then we give her that time to rest and her brain to rest, and, you know, to give her that opportunity to just wait until she's ready to, you know, start the day over, or even just wait and start again tomorrow. So it's a different journey, but a lot of the lessons that we learned with our son do apply. And our daughter loves homeschooling. She has homeschooling friends. She is very involved. She loves to sing, so she takes voice lessons. She loves art. She's been with an art teacher for almost 2 years, actually over 2 years now. And she loves outdoors. We have a nature path on our property, so she loves going exploring and science. So it's a whole new, it's almost like homeschooling an only child again, because, you know, there is a 13-year age gap between our children. But it's been a great lesson for me. And I, again, just wanted to share our story, our family story, because I know how common it is when you're homeschooling a child that maybe is not heading down a college path after school, after homeschool. I know how isolating that can be. So, you know, with my friend and co-author, Cindy LaJoy, we shared our journeys, our respective journeys and lessons we learned, because we didn't want other families, and especially other parents, we didn't want them to feel alone. This is a different path. It's a path that's not often taken, but as we know, those paths usually are the most beautiful and teach us the most. So that's a very long synopsis of our journey, but that's kind of where we are at now.
So you talk about that you actually reinvented your career because of this journey, right? You were a music therapist and recreational therapist, right?
Yes.
So how did you make that transition as a woman with a career, right? But also a mom? How did you make that transition from having a degree, having a career as a therapist, to then reinventing homeschooling and then taking this to the world of homeschool moms?
So the honest answer is I'm really not sure how. if I could tell you, I'm like, you know, boy. I think though, looking back, so first of all, I really just, the situation at the time when we pulled our son out of school to homeschool him, I really just jumped right into homeschooling and tried to learn as much as I could.
Mhm.
So my focus really was on our son. I really didn't think about sharing our journey and going into advocacy and going into podcasting and going to everything that I'm doing now. Honestly, I really didn't think about that until we went through all of the experiences we went through. You know, our son was hospitalized. We moved from the suburbs out to rural farm country. You know, our son started his apprenticeship. I learned along the way, and I think I didn't start. I apologize. I didn't acknowledge that, oh, hey, I'm learning something and I have something to share. I think that really didn't happen until probably a couple of years ago. And what I did was I started things like I volunteered for a couple of local nonprofits related to FASD and to epilepsy. I was actually selected in our state of North Carolina, one of 50 parents to participate in a leadership summit for parents of children with special needs. It was called the Exceptional Children's Assistance Center Parent Leadership Conference. And I was very honored to be a part of that. And I learned a lot in that. So I think when other people started seeing, hey, you're pretty good at this advocating thing, maybe you should take it to the next level. I think that gave me the confidence to say, okay, I'm ready to share our story and what we've learned.
Mhm.
So again, the honest answer, I really have no idea. But for example, podcasting, you know, we started FASD Hope, and that was over a year ago. I just felt like it was ready. I felt like inside me, I knew it was ready to share our story and to learn from other people and to help others learn. And I think it was also, to be honest with you, I think it was really kind of like a revelation aha moment. You know, I had about a year and a half ago where I realized that, okay, everything I went to school for and I studied for and I, you know, practiced for so many years, over 20 years, was wonderful and I loved it. And I would do it again in a heartbeat, but I realized that I was meant to be on this road for a reason. And I think when I really embraced and acknowledged that, then doors opened even more. You know, then I realized that, oh, hey, there's a book inside me that I need to share and teach other people. So yeah, I guess it's just a really personal reason for everybody. You know, for me, it was, okay, I knew I couldn't do it while our son was in crisis or while our son was, you know, just starting to get his sea legs and learning and whatnot. I did it when it felt right for me.
Mhm. You followed it sounds like it happened very naturally. You followed the natural course.
Yes, yes. It was really organic, to be honest with you. You know, I just felt like I was like, okay, I'm in a place now where I'm ready to, I've always wanted to help others. You know, that's why I went into the professions I did. But I realized now it was like, okay, I acknowledge that our family's personal journey is very unique. However, you know, from what I learned in the trainings I went to, you know, it's so common for so many families of kids with neurodiversity to
Mhm.
feel so isolated and to feel so alone. And if I could be part of that solution or to change the conversation of stop focusing on the deficits and start focusing on the strengths, then I wanted to be a part of that solution.
Right. Well, I think for other homeschooling moms, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about, you know, I was a homeschool mom for my oldest son has had a lot of medical problems. He's doing great now, but it was a long journey, and he was home with us for many years past what people would think is cool or good, you know, because he had medical struggles, because he was not capable of living on his own at 21, 22, 23. Well, he's 26 now and he is living on his own and he's thriving, he's doing great, but he had his own path. It had its own timing. And the term neurodiverse learner, I think for other homeschool parents listening, or even if you've got a kid, you're just a mom that's got kids in school, but you know that you've got a kid or two that may have medical problems, may have behavioral problems. There are things that we know as a mom, we know this school environment is not working for my kiddo. And my son was in first grade. He was just starting out in first grade. Kindergarten, he was able to slide through, but it was in first grade we realized this isn't working. This is not helping him. He is getting worse. And so I want to encourage listeners to check out this book, to check out resources, to know that there are options. You don't have to just be stuck in a public school environment. If you feel like that school is not being able to meet your child's needs, there are options, and you don't have to feel like you're trapped in homeschooling either. That there are options. If you're a homeschool mom and you feel exhausted, that you are burning the candle at both ends and in the middle because of the struggles going on, there are resources to help, and you can get help outside of homeschooling. So I just want to encourage listeners, if you're in this situation, that there are advocates. There are people that can help you. Do the research, dig in, don't be alone in this. Just like what you're doing, Natalie, you are reaching out to help people who feel like they're alone. So moms, you're not alone out there.
So I just want to say, but because I want Natalie to speak to this, if you exercise that option, that homeschool option, you don't have to recreate the classroom in your home.
Oh, right.
And I think that that's the whole message that you're saying, that you've reinvented the idea of homeschooling for children who are neurodiverse. So I'd love for you to talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure. So, and I admit my mistakes in our book because, and Cindy and I both do actually, I tried to recreate school at home. I remember, and I even share in the book about our first day, which was a big flop. And I was like, okay, here we go. And then I was like, no, so what if I could do it over again, I would definitely allow time to deschool, to decompress. If your child, especially your child that has a neurodiversity, they need that time to physically decompress. It's almost like being in a pressure cooker or an Instapot for, however many months or years. I would do that. And so for me, and this is a great example, and Teri, I'm so glad you brought this up. You as a homeschool mom or as a homeschool dad or, just as a homeschool family, you do not have to do every subject yourself. I think there's that misconception that you buy the box curriculum and you do it all yourself. Nope. My son's a carpentry apprentice, and I knew zip about carpentry when we started it. And I talk about that in this book. And what I did, and this is another key term, like interdependence and like, the other terms we're talking about, I outsourced carpentry. So I did not give him his carpentry apprenticeship. Two very talented carpenters and woodworkers did, as well as camps and classes and whatnot. Same thing when he wanted to learn welding. I don't know about welding. So, we took him to a local nonprofit that they offer these small classes where you can learn the trades and everything. So that we outsourced it. And there are so many resources now, especially since the pandemic. Oh my goodness, it's like an explosion of resources, especially for skills, trades, entrepreneurs, everything that we talk about in our book. You really can reinvent it and personalize it. Again, I can't stress enough, and Cindy and I talk about this in our book, in our journeys, always comply with your state or your province or your country's guidelines, wherever you're listening to us from. Always comply with those regulations, and for us, we became members of HSLDA because we knew that was just a great, service option organization for our family.
Can you tell our listeners what that means?
Sure. So HSLDA, and we talk about it, actually, I believe we even list the link in our book, is the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. They are an organization that not only, gives family support in their homeschool journey, lets them know, okay, these are the regulations to abide by, but also just lets you know if a district or a county or a state is putting a little too much pressure that is actually not legally necessary. So, if you are a homeschooler and you get a letter from your school district saying, oh, well, you didn't do this, and you know that you are in compliance, HSLDA is like your insurance policy. You call them up and they will help you with that. Another thing, HSLDA also offers classes to students. They offer just so many things. The membership is totally worth the money. But finally, especially in the past 5 years, I'm going to say HSLDA has really increased their special needs exceptional learners department. So now they have staff members that can answer questions, that can give you guidance and provide resources. So that's an added benefit, especially if you are homeschooling a child or a teen that has a neurodiversity. So that's hslda.org. I highly recommend it. As a mom of kids with as a mom with lived experience of kids with, different diagnoses. So honestly, you can outsource the things that you don't know, or the things that you're just not sure of. And I really did that in the last 2 years of our son's homeschool journey, because we really focused on his carpentry, so our math was actually based on carpentry math, and there was actually a wonderful book I found on Amazon called Shop Math. And it just basically was what he needed as a carpenter. So I bought one for his teacher, and I bought one for him, and bought one for me. And we all just worked together. He also wanted to learn just about wood and the science behind wood and everything. So I mentioned in the book, one of the things he did, this was actually after he graduated, but again, could be part of his apprenticeship, was he went with his apprentice teacher. His apprentice teacher had a fallen black walnut tree that was gifted to him. And if you know anything about carpentry, black walnut is just gorgeous. It's an amazing wood to work with, especially building furniture, live edge, things like that. And again, I can't believe I'm saying words like this. The me 5 years ago was like, you're talking about live edge black walnut. Who are you? So I laugh. I just had to pause and think, wow, I can't believe I'm talking like this. But he went out with him. It was a whole day, like a field trip, where they went out. They got the big fallen tree. They had it moved to the place where it was going to be, cut for slabs, and then where it would be dried. And it was just an amazing process. Our son would have never learned if he had not been in this apprenticeship experience. And again, his apprenticeship teacher, he does it out of the kindness of his heart, and that he, just genuinely cares for our son. We don't pay him, it's just an apprenticeship based out of caring, and that he genuinely just wants to see the best for our son. So that, I think, is the biggest blessing of it, of all, is that, and actually our son's first teacher too, he was not paid or anything. He did it because he wanted our son to thrive. So that's.
So let me ask you this. Obviously you mentioned that you have to follow your state and local guidelines for homeschooling. So talk a little bit about how moms can use a strengths-based approach. What would be the first step that they need to take? How do they implement that while following requirements?
So it's almost like how you hear in many homeschool conversations about interest-led, learning, interest-led direction. Mm-hmm. So it's where you allow your child, so if you're parenting a child that's on the younger side, incorporating their interests into their existing, so say they're really interested in rocks, and could just mine rocks or hunt for rocks. Well, then you incorporate geology into that. And, you have unit studies. Unit studies are awesome. I love them. You have maybe a month where you incorporate that into your curriculum. As they get older, you do things like maybe they go to a site that's supervised with you, like either if you live, in an area that has, I'm thinking like you both are in Colorado, so I'm sure you have like this kind of thing, like a geological site or something like that, where they can go and visit for the day supervised. And then as they get older, maybe they can have a mentorship or some sort of, some sort of experience where they can be supervised, once a week, where they can work with someone or be an assistant, and then even build that up to an apprenticeship where they're helping, and it's part of their homeschool class. So for example, our son's apprenticeship hours, we counted them, we had monthly goals, we had, we documented the hours, we kept a record of his work and whatnot. So it really can grow as your child grows and as your child ages. And then the other great thing about doing something like that too, again, learning their interest, and it's something they want to continue to pursue, is that you can pace it at their own pace. So due to our son's nature of his developmental disability, which was FASD, having a fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, his memory is very inconsistent. His working memory was affected. His ability to retrieve information was inconsistent due to the brain differences from the prenatal alcohol exposure. So one of the things we did with both of his apprenticeship teachers, one of the things I did was just talk to them about the nature of his diagnosis and say, okay, so the best way he learns is like breaking down steps. So maybe no more than 3 steps at a time, and repeating steps, and maybe having a visual cue or something. So incorporating how they learn best into those interests too will reinforce that, information. And especially, we know, just as moms with lived experience, we know that when our kids are interested in something, it's like hyper focus. It's like all of the neurodiversity goes right into that focus. So they can, play Minecraft for 4 hours, or they could do something. So you build on that, interest. And somebody said, I was on another podcast, and this was just like such a beautiful statement. It's like, do you want your child to have a career in something that they absolutely don't like? Or do you want your child, teen, young adult, to have a career in something that they love? And if they do, then start exploring that early. And even before that, we always knew that our son was a very kinesthetic and visual learner. And I've been giving this example often because I think it's great how it ties into what he does now. So when we were homeschooling, and we were kind of at the end of his, written curriculum type of things, when we do English and math and all that stuff, our son, ever since he started, always liked to do his book work and his computer work or whatever at our stove, standing up with the stove light on. And I tried for a long time to be like, oh, sit over there and everything. He's like, Mom, I do it quicker and I do it better over here. So finally sunk into my head. I was like, okay, let's just let it be. This is homeschooling. This is what. So literally, like maybe a year or so ago, actually, I think it was before that, I went in early to see him with his carpentry teacher, and I saw him standing up, at his workbench where he and his teacher do the work, standing up, writing down his stuff, and there was a light overhead, and I was like, this is what he was meant to do. This is why he was looking. That's what gave him, that kind of feeling of, yes, confidence. And he works best standing up. He can measure to like, the 32nd of an inch, in carpentry, because he focuses better on his feet. And I think that's something that parents should keep in mind.
Mhm.
You know, my daughter, she really likes to sit on her bouncy ball when she's doing things, you know, incorporate that and learn the science behind that. And when you learn the why behind the what you think is actually a quirk, it's actually part of their strength, you know, so incorporate that. So, you know, getting back to that example, I let him stand and I would just give him breaks and he would just stand and do his work. And sure enough, when I'd go back and check it, it was as accurate as it as could be. So you learn a lot on this journey. And again, I just hope that our book is a resource. And Cindy shares, you know, my co-author and friend Cindy, she shares very similar things that she learned through her now young adults of, you know, how their quirks worked into, oh, hey, this is kind of like a superpower.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, and I think those are applicable to neurotypical children as well. I mean, my favorite classrooms to see are those that offer a variety of seating arrangements, standing arrangements, because we don't have to sit in little desks,
right,
with no padding, by the way, you know, in order to learn all the same way.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I'm glad that you shared that example.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah. So we need to take a quick break and let Teri read a word from our sponsor. And then when we come back, we would like to hear about your podcast and a little bit more about FASD.
Are you concerned about your child's reading or spelling performance? Are you worried your child's reading curriculum isn't thorough enough? Well, most learning struggles aren't the results of poor curriculum or instruction. They're typically caused by having cognitive skills that need to be strengthened. Skills like auditory processing, memory, and processing speed. LearningRx one-on-one brain training programs are designed to target and strengthen the skills that we rely on for reading, spelling, writing, and learning. LearningRx can help you identify which skills may be keeping your child from performing their best. In fact, we've worked with more than 100,000 children and adults who wanted to think and perform better. We'd like to help get your child on the path to a brighter and more confident future. Give LearningRx a call at 866-BRAIN-01 or visit learningrx.com. That's learningrx.com.
And we are back talking to Natalie Vecchione about homeschooling neurodiverse kids. So Natalie, your podcast is called FASD Hope. Talk to us a little bit about what that's about and what you want everybody to know about FASD.
Sure thing. So FASD Hope is a podcast my husband and I started in October of last year. And our mission is threefold. We want to provide awareness about fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. We want to provide resources through our podcast, through our website, you know, through other avenues. And then most importantly, we want to provide hope and inspiration for families, caregivers, you know, those who work with children through adults that have a fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. So fetal alcohol spectrum disorder is a spectrum disorder similar to autism spectrum disorder or other brain-based spectrum disorders. However, the big takeaway from fetal alcohol spectrum disorder is that it is caused by prenatal alcohol exposure. And what we have learned over the course of many years, and especially in recent years, is that alcohol is the most harmful substance for an unborn child. We often think it's illicit drugs or even prescription drugs. It's actually alcohol. And the science behind it is alcohol not only affects the brain, impairs and affects the brain cells, damages the brain cells and causes brain differences, but it also can cause up to 400 other medical diagnoses because we know alcohol permeates every single system in an unborn child's body, in a person's body. So FASD is basically an umbrella term for disabilities caused by alcohol. There are 5 diagnoses under that umbrella. Fetal alcohol syndrome, which is what most people think of, which is really the most impactful, where people think of, oh, there's the facial qualities, there's those facial characteristics. With fetal alcohol syndrome, it is the most severe of the 5 diagnoses. However, any person that has been exposed to alcohol prenatally can look different from another one. There's many factors that fall into play with having an FASD. So there's fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, fetal alcohol syndrome. There is partial fetal alcohol syndrome, which is called PFAS, alcohol-related birth defects, neurobehavioral disorder associated with prenatal alcohol exposure, or NDPAE, and then alcohol-related neurodevelopmental disorder. So that's a mouthful, but basically the takeaways from this that I'd like your listeners to know about FASD are this. First of all, no amount of alcohol during pregnancy is safe. And that especially includes if, whether you are married and, you're trying to get pregnant and you consume an occasional glass of wine and then, oops, you finally realize you're pregnant, 6 weeks later or 8 weeks later. No amount of alcohol is safe during pregnancy. CDC, so many other organizations, emphasize that if you are trying to conceive, or even if you think you might be trying to conceive, just don't drink, don't consume alcohol. Alcohol, the facial characteristics, there's a fallacy that people often think that, oh, well, in order to have alcohol exposure, they have to have, quote unquote, the facial characteristics. Those facial characteristics, the alcohol that causes the alcohol exposure that causes those facial characteristics, that only happens, I believe it's during days 17 through 23 in the pregnancy. So it's very early in, and it's only for about a week in that first trimester. So if birth mom, biological mom, if a mother has consumed alcohol either before or after, there's not going to be any outward facial signs. So another fact is 90% of those that have an FASD have no outward facial or physical characteristics. So it really is an invisible disability. FASD, it's a brain-based disorder, and it has whole body symptoms. It can also cause a range of cognitive, behavioral, health, adaptive functioning, executive functioning, and learning difficulties. There's a high percentage of those that have an FASD that also have co-occurring mental health diagnoses. And again, the science behind this is because the alcohol that has, affected the brain and the cognitive functioning and whatnot also has affected the mood and mood regulation and that whole stability in the brain. So I believe the percentage is 93% of those individuals that have an FASD also have a co-occurring mental health diagnosis. Finally, that is the biggest takeaway that I'd like people to get from, actually there's 2 more. A recent 2018 study done by Dr. Philip May out of UNC Chapel Hill, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. He did a study of, I believe it was approximately 6,600 first graders in 4 US communities that were, separated. He determined through this study, and this was published in the journal of, it was published actually in a couple, it was published in JAMA. It was also published in the American Association of Pediatrics. And I believe it was also an NIH study too. It estimated that 1 in 20 of those children had an FASD, and that was a very conservative estimate. It actually, less conservative estimates are FASD. The prevalence is somewhere between 3 to 10% in the US. So even if we went with that 1 in 20 diagnosis, or that 1 in 20 statistic rather, that is, I think that's more than twice as much as autism, which I believe the most current statistic I've seen is 1 in 50 or 1 in 51. So the prevalence of FASD is much higher than people suspect. Finally, FASD is often undiagnosed. It's actually the most undiagnosed, misdiagnosed, and underdiagnosed of all the developmental disabilities, because especially children with having an FASD, and this was the case with our son, often get other diagnoses first. So things like sensory processing disorder, visual processing disorder, learning, difficulties, dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, attention deficit, hyperactivity disorder, even autism spectrum disorder. Those diagnoses are usually acquired by a child with an FASD. And then when treatments and interventions that usually work for those diagnoses don't work, parents just don't understand. They're frustrated. Have your child tested for having an FASD, because when you learn that your child has an FASD, there's a shift of a child won't do something to, oh, my child is not able to do something because of the brain damage. And that really was what happened to us when we learned our son had an FASD when he was 15. We were told by a neurologist that he had suspected it for a number of reasons, but it was finally confirmed when he was 15. The book that I would highly recommend to your listeners to learn more about FASD is Trying Differently Rather Than Harder by Diane Malbin. It's really the book to start learning about FASD and the science behind brain-based diagnoses, and making that shift from thinking that a child with a brain-based diagnosis, such as FASD, thinking of it's a willful behavior, to no, it's actually a symptom. It's actually a brain-based symptom. And it really, my husband and I took the training, we read the book, we took other trainings, and when we really started just again breaking down things to seeing things like if our son had a meltdown, or if our son just was just not able to do something, going back and looking at, okay, what is happening, what is something, is this developmentally too high of an expectation for our son, or is this something that it's related to memory, he's not able to recall it, that kind of thing. So some examples of primary characteristics of a child, adolescent, even adults that have an FASD. Some of them include impulsivity, distractibility, having a slower processing pace, and that's visual, auditory, having that slower processing pace, having difficulty with memory, problems with working memory, especially inconsistent performance in memory, difficulty, here's a huge one, difficulty with abstract thinking. So often concrete thinking is really the best way an individual that has an FASD learns, because abstract thinking is just not, their brain is not able to process it. Having, and related to that, having difficulty with cause and effect. So not understanding consequences, and again, when we go back to a brain-based neurobehavioral model of parenting and caregiving, what we do rather than consequences is we make accommodations, and we change our expectations. So, and then probably the biggest hallmarks of FASD include dysmaturity, or having a much higher chronological age than a developmental age. And then finally, having sensory either overstimulation or sensory seeking behavior symptoms, excuse me. So those are examples of having primary characteristics with an FASD.
Okay. So I learned so much in that conversation that I feel like maybe I should have known as a psychologist. So I really appreciate that detail, Natalie, for sure.
Yeah.
So we are out of time and need to wrap up. And okay. There's a pop-up on my screen if you're not watching us on if you're not watching us on YouTube, and I didn't know what to do with it. So okay. This has been a great conversation, Natalie. We really appreciate that you took the time to share your personal journey with us and our listeners today and to educate us,
Yes, so much
especially on the risks of drinking during pregnancy and how to recognize the FASD symptoms and to know that we might frequently misdiagnose children. And so
time frame. I was interested to hear that time frame. 17 week. No, what was it?
So for the facial characteristics,
Yeah, that was so interesting.
I believe, so I can find this source and send it to you so you can share with our your listeners, but I believe it's days 17 through 23 days this in gestation. Yeah, that's when the facial characteristics associated with fetal alcohol exposure happen. So if it's after that, you're not going to see those characteristics.
Well, and I think it's important for our listeners then to recognize that when we think of fetal alcohol syndrome, that's what we associate.
Right.
Right?
The most dramatic FAS.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so just because you got lucky and didn't drink between day 17 and 23, so you don't have the facial characteristics, doesn't mean that you don't have a lifelong impact from the cognitive deficits that present and the emotional deficits that can
and
present.
I don't know, I want to say, like, gosh, we need to recognize this and maybe set aside the shame, like we didn't know what we didn't know.
Yes.
For
Yes.
know that there was a big movement for a while in the kind of hippie breastfeeding circles that was like, it's fine, you can have a glass of wine in pregnancy if it helps calm you down and lower your heart rate. And so I think that it's okay, moms, listen up, we don't need to beat ourselves up, but let's be aware. And if your kids are struggling, it's okay to investigate that and even get that diagnosis and not be ashamed, but say, I didn't know. Mm-hmm. And now we know. So now let's do the right thing and try to help.
Well, and birth control pill babies, like my youngest.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was pregnant because I was on birth control. And so those are not intentional.
Mm-hmm. Right.
When you have a glass of wine, you're not trying to get pregnant. You think you're preventing pregnancy, right? Mm-hmm. And so absolutely, that awareness is
and something important for your listeners to know is there's actually national legislation that has been introduced. It's called the FASD Respect Act. It's Senate the Senate bill is 2238 and the House of Representatives bill is 4151. So S 2238 and HR 4151. And basically there are a bunch of advocates. I've been very blessed enough to be a part of this movement as a parent advocate. There is funding for prevention, research, and supports and services, and for each state to hopefully have a center for FASD, to where you go for resources, diagnosis, very similar to autism and how, the legislation for autism has happened. And most importantly, FASD with this bill will be recognized as a diagnosable developmental disability. Okay. Because it's often, misdiagnosed or, there are, you can diagnose it, but there's a long wait for many of the diagnostic clinics in the US, and unfortunately there's just not enough resources. So this national legislation, if you're interested in about it, hearing more and how you can advocate for it, I will be sharing with you the link that you can go and learn more about it. But yeah, it's called the FASD Respect Act.
Excellent. So Natalie, again, thank you for your time today. If you would like to connect with Natalie, learn more about FASD, get her book, first of all, you can visit fasdhope.com. We'll actually put her social media handles and the link to her book in our show notes. And again, her book is called Blazing New Homeschool Trails, Educating and Launching Teens with Developmental Disabilities, co-authored by Natalie Vecchione and Cindy LaJoy. So thank you so much for listening today. If you liked our show, we would love it if you would leave us a rating, a 5-star rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you'd rather watch us, we are on YouTube. You can follow us on social media at the Brainy Moms, at Dr._Amy Moore, and at Teresa Miller. So look, until next time, we know you're busy moms and we're busy moms. So we are out.
Yeah.